Attorney General Bill Barr on defense today, under fire from Democrats on the Hill, demanding all kinds of answers. Senator Chris van Hollen joins me momentarily, and he cross-examined Barr, pushing on the obstruction of justice issues, and got quite a newsworthy answer today.
You looked at the evidence of the report, and you made a decision. And you said that the president's not guilty of criminal obstruction of justice. I'm asking you, in your review of the report, did you agree with Mueller that there were difficult issues of law and fact?
I'm going to give my reaction and comments, about the report after the report.
Well, it would have been, but you put your view of the report out there on this issue of obstruction of justice, right? Nobody asked you to do that.
I didn't put my view of the report.
Well, you put your assessment on, you made a conclusion on the question of obstruction of justice that was not contained in the Mueller report.
I will discuss that decision after the report.
Did Bob Mueller support your conclusion?
I don't know whether Bob Mueller supported my conclusion.
Senator, what is important in your view about that admission there, that it was strictly Barr and not Mueller on obstruction?
Well, Ari, if Attorney General Barr had any credibility left as an independent administrator of justice and the facts, he lost it today because he refused to testify as to how he reached his conclusion, which of course preempted what was already in the report from Mueller, which is that there was evidence that the president obstructed justice, just not enough to find it beyond a reasonable doubt. And clearly, as Barr testified, he didn't consult with Mueller on that question because it's clear that Mueller has not endorsed in any way Barr's conclusions to try to exonerate the president.
So in your view, in plain English, are you concerned that Barr may have reached that position defending Donald Trump effectively before or even without the full report?
Well, what it tells me is that he just sort of hearkened back to the memo he wrote last year, where he essentially found that presidents who were not guilty of the underlying crime, in this case criminal collusion, could not therefore be guilty of obstruction of justice, which is just nonsense. There are lots of scenarios where a president could still be guilty of obstructing justice. So Barr went into this with preconceived notions, and that's not doing the job of an independent fact finder.
Hey, Senator, you also had an exchange on redactions. Take a look.
Can you assure us that the key factual evidence in the Mueller report related to charges of obstruction of justice will be available in the public report?
I believe it will.
My understanding from your House testimony was you're allowing the Mueller team to make the redactions in 3 of the 4 areas you mentioned, all of them except for intelligence. You're not going to overrule the special counsel's judgment with respect to any of those categories, right?
I haven't.
And can you tell us you will not?
Well, if an issue comes up, I don't want to prejudge it, but it's not my intention.
Is that new information that he is asserting that the bulk of these redactions are coming from the team? And how will you prove or enforce whether or not he's telling the truth about this when it all comes out?
Well, Ari, he hinted at that yesterday in his House testimony. I wanted to confirm that today, and he did confirm that the Mueller team is essentially in charge of making the redactions in those 3 categories, all of them except for intelligence. But I also wanted an assurance from him that he would not override them going forward. And I was disturbed that he would refuse to provide that public assurance, because the Mueller people are perfectly capable of making judgments about redactions in those 3 areas, and there's no scenario I can imagine where the Attorney General, an unbiased Attorney General, would overrule them.
It's very interesting, and especially to see the way you pressed him and got some of those answers on the record as we wait for what is now expected to be the report as soon as next week. Senator Van Hollen, thank you for coming on The Beat.
Good to be with you. Thanks.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.